What is going wrong at the Sharks? The South African team with the most Springboks, the biggest budget, and the grandest festivities consistently find themselves underperforming. So why is that? My name is Cuan Raw, and welcome to Fair Tackle, where we dissect this beautiful hooligan game and look at all things rugby. Today we are investigating the problem with the Durban-based franchise, the Sharks, of which I am a huge fan, if you cannot tell, where I believe the issues run far beyond the pitch and can be boiled down to team culture and team identity. So let's take a look at the team culture. Right, on the Sharks' website, it says a team that consistently plays entertaining and exciting rugby that appeals to a broad spectrum of rugby enthusiasts. Now, the Sharks have been underperforming, failing to make the top 8 in the URC this year, which is quite frankly very disappointing. But this is not new. Since the Sharks were purchased by the New York-based investment consortium MVM Holdings, led by South African-born lawyer Marco Mazzotti, they have been underperforming. With partners like Rock Nation Sports, the huge budget in comparison to other teams and the amount of Springbok players that we have, this should not be happening at all. The main issue is, I believe, is that the Springboks that we have are merely Springboks playing for the Sharks, not Sharks eventually becoming Springboks. There are exceptions like Ethan Hooker and Oxen Chair, although he did have his start at the Cheetahs, and Grant Williams. But for the most part, players like Eben Etzebeth, Bongi Mbonambi, Vincent Koch, Sia Kolisi, Trevor Nyakanya, and etc., they're only used by the Sharks fairly rarely because they spend the majority of the year with Rassie in the Springbok camp. Now, Sia Kolisi is moving back to the Stormers, good for him. But no, in all seriousness, good for him. I think he must do what's best for himself, for his family, and everything like that. But it does leave a bit of a hole at the Sharks. And these players are in need of rest, or they're just spending majority of the year in the Springbok camps, as opposed to a player that has been developed through the Sharks and the youth academy. The South African youth components like the Varsity Cup, the under-20s, schoolboy rugby is thriving at the moment, and not enough is being done about it from the Sharks' side. The result of this is that the team is not gelling very well. You can see it in the way they play, that it just feels like they don't know what's going on with one another. They don't have that synchronicity with each other. The result of this is that the returning Springbok stars are not fully informed or potentially bought into the style that the Sharks want to play. And I would even go so far as to say that the Sharks don't even know what style they want to play. The Sharks team is basically a retirement home for Springboks at the moment. You have these older Springbok legends that are coming in, receiving a wonderful paycheck, and they get to stay in South Africa with their families, and yet the return on investment for the team is quite low. Consider Eben Etzebeth especially. I mean, obviously it's not the Sharks' fault that he got banned for so long, but his return on investment for the Sharks has been quite shocking. And so this is because, although the big guys will perform decently, we can notice that there is a drop-off in quality between how they play for the club and how they play for the country. And this has been documented with all of the franchises in South Africa, but I think it's especially prevalent in the Sharks. It's because although they are talented, they actually have a serious limit because of the team dynamic. Now, I don't blame those Springbok players at all either. Like I said, Sia Kolisi and the rest of them, they must do what's best for them. They must get their bank. Like, just go for it. If someone's offering you a lot of money to stay in South Africa and you get to play every now and again, that's fine, dude. Take that money, definitely. But for the Sharks team as a whole, this is definitely holding us back. The Sharks have all the resources to make the playoffs and even the top 4, and I genuinely think with some changes, the Sharks should aim to win the whole URC within 5 years. That is my claim. I think the Sharks, with serious changes, could win the whole thing within 5 years, and I don't think that that is outrageous. Not even mentioning the Champions Cup and the Challenge Cup, which are just in turmoil at the moment, but we're not going to talk about that. We're going to mainly focus on the URC for this. People are starting to see through the current business strategy that the Sharks are employing, which I think sounds something like, if we get these huge names, we can sell more jerseys and tickets. Where I think if you win more games, people will probably care about you more, and the Sharks will need to start focusing on the new guys, and this is where the turning point comes from. So I'm thinking of guys like Zekekelo Siyaya, the new 18-year-old fullback, or Yaku Williams, or Kai Pratt, and even more established names that are still quite young, like Ethan Hooker, Lorenzo Julius, and the Chitsuka brothers. They are ripe and ready, and they're playing really good rugby. And even guys that have been around the club for a while, like Pepsi Buthelezi, who just haven't quite broken into the Springbok setup at the moment. What this does is it establishes a core group of through and through Sharks first, not Springboks playing for the Sharks, but Sharks players within the Sharks. And this includes the new talent as well as fundamental leadership. I think Vincent Tuchuka could be one of, if not the most important player for the Sharks at the moment. The current Springboks we have, unfortunately, are unable to fully integrate into the core of this team, and that's where the issue comes in. This is where we bleed into team identity and the lack of it in the Sharks. The Lions are a perfect example of how this should be done, and they are basically the antithesis of the Sharks at the moment. They are the opposite Sharks, because they have the least amount of Springboks of any South African team. They have a smaller budget and a less notable names, although they still obviously have amazing talent, and I'm not downplaying the amount of talent that they have. I'm just saying they don't have the superstar names like the other three franchises do. They have smaller budget, less notable names, and they still have amazing talent and structures, but they're currently doing really well in the URC, punching well above their weight. And I believe this is because they have a central idea of how they want to play, and they embrace that. They want to play, and they know which role a person does. They know who does what in which role. And the Sharks just do not have that at all. The Lions have embraced their running style. Now, obviously, when they're at home, they're in altitude, and it's really good for running rugby. And they know this. They've played into those strengths, and they've set it up so that the people playing for them also know this and will also play into those strengths. The Sharks just don't have this at all. The Lions are able to do their running style. They're counter-attacking really well off of mistakes, and they look like running teams off their feet, basically. Now, obviously, this doesn't always work, because there are teams that are unfortunately just superior and better in other areas. The Sharks, on the other hand, they kind of just look like a bunch of spaghetti, and we're just throwing things at the defense and seeing what sticks. Like, it's just not working at the moment. We have moments of individual brilliance because we have talented players, obviously, and even some moments of team brilliance when things kind of stick together. The issue is, and actually I'll give you an example. For instance, the set move try from Edward van der Merwe against Edinburgh a few weeks ago, that was a beautiful piece of what we are and what we're capable of.
That Edinburgh wall, Esterhuizen, now the opportunity comes, Siyaya, and then it will be run in by Edward van der Merwe.
But then we concede 3 tries in 8 minutes, and all of that hard work has not only been undone, but it's actually just making us look stupid. And then we lose our heads, we lose our composure, and we're unable to redo those things. Now, this is definitely beyond the players. And I think, although it is a coaching issue as well, I do feel that JP Peterson will do great things at the Sharks. I am an absolute JP Peterson fanboy at the moment. Well, I've always been, but especially now, because he's not only one of my favorite players to ever play the game, he's now coaching my favorite franchise team. So I am really in on JP Peterson. I think he's a great new blood injection with a newer head, so to speak, but with that same Springbok mindset. Like, he's still been at the top, you know what I mean? And so I truly believe that this problem is actually just ingrained into the entire structure of the organization at the Sharks as a whole. And it's all flash, but little substance whatsoever. This can be seen on the Sharks website that I mentioned earlier, where it says in the About section, a team that consistently plays entertaining and exciting rugby that appeals to a broad spectrum of rugby enthusiasts. So my question is, when? When does this happen? Like, this might happen when Apelele Fassi has a moment of brilliance, or Lorenzo Julius breaks a tackle and gets it up really close to the line. But then it's taken us 4 drop balls and 2 conceded turnovers to get to that point in the first place. And so we have these 10 attacking attempts, resulting in 2 exciting moments, let's say, which are great for the YouTube shorts and I'm sure for the Sharks' website. But the other 8 attempts are just messy and they end up in very, very basic errors. And most of the time we look like we're just floundering. And to back this up, I'm actually going to look at some statistics. So, got some statistics from the URC website. The Sharks are ranked 13th in attacking out of 16 and 16th of 16 in defense. So essentially we are 4th last in attacking and dead last in defense. That is shocking statistics from a team with our capabilities. Specifically, let's have a look at the Sharks versus the Lions. The Lions are in 4th for attacking, okay? And I believe that the Sharks are they're just trying to distribute to the wide channels far too quickly. Like way, way too quickly. And the stats actually back this up. Let's see. So, okay, we can see the statistics here. What this shows us is that the Sharks are struggling to make meters on the gain line because we are not getting the go forward and we allow the defense to set us up properly. And that means we're able to just get shut down by the wings just get shut down by the time that he has the ball. So he can't really make meters. So what can he do? He has to try and cut back inside, which means he has no space. He's cutting back inside and he goes into traffic. And then our attack is basically stagnant because we haven't made any meters. So this is not exactly the exciting rugby that the website promised us. And we also see how few offloads we do compared to other teams, but in general. Now, I'm not saying that we need to play exactly like the Lions because we're not the Lions and we're not going to be able to play like the Lions. But I think that the Sharks will benefit from using our existing big ball carriers that we have. I'm talking the giant Andre Esterhazen, the Tuchuka brothers, Pepsi Buthelezi. These guys can get go forward momentum. Even Ethan Hooker, he can get go forward momentum. They make meters. And this gets the defense to be running backwards. And through that, will create gaps for Edward van der Merwe, for Apelele Fassi, for Jaco Williams to exploit. And this will increase our clean breaks as well. The meters gained, the defenders beaten. This is what we need to be working on because we're doing very poorly in it right now. And hopefully also the tries scored and eventually games won. Right, we have the resources to do this. We just need to have the right mindset because we're not playing to the strengths that we have at the moment. And even Skulk Burger, I'm going to name drop now. Skulk Burger even mentioned this on his podcast with Shimi and Jean de Villiers. And he said the same thing that I'm saying now. Is that the Sharks have these big ball carriers. They have the opportunity to get the defense on the back foot. And that creates gaps naturally. If your defense is running backwards, okay, they're scrambling because you're making meters forward. They're going to start making mistakes. They're going to be offside and have to go round back to onside. It's just natural. That's how it works. But right now, we're letting the defense just kind of get to us before we do anything. We're just passing to the wing, and he can't do anything because he's getting shut down. Moving on to defense. Our defense is unfortunately even worse than that, according to the statistics at least. We're currently ranked 16 of 16, which means there is no one in the URC who is worse than us. Okay, this is the statistics that I am looking at. I don't know if they've been updated since. So we have the lowest successful tackle rate, the most turnovers conceded, and by far the least turnovers won. Turnovers lost only confirms my suspicion, because when we have a stagnant attack distributing to the wings, our players end up isolated because they're having to cut back in, or just the defense is already set and waiting for them. So our wing is ending up getting tackled and taken down and just isolated. And so, therefore, the defense is in positions to just steal the ball away from us, hence the statistic that we give away the most turnovers. On the other hand, if we were to employ a forward-moving style with our big ball carriers and obviously tightening up on ruck and ruck speed, we would emphasizing the ruck support. This reduces the turnovers conceded, and on defense, we seem almost passive. With JP Peterson even said after the Edinburgh game that we gave away some very soft moments, and the stats agree with JP. I genuinely think the Sharks will benefit from a tighter attacking game and using the bodies we have to go forward, putting defenses under pressure, and from that we will exploit the gaps with the talent that we have. And on defense, to also tighten up, don't give away a soft shoulder. And maybe it's worth looking to developing a role where a player goes to fetch, because we don't really have massive fetches at the moment. So maybe it would be a good idea to have a guy like that. But that's for the coaches, I suppose. Or at least someone to make themselves a bit more of a nuisance at ruck time. A big guy like a Marco van Staden, someone who can just kind of get in there and ruffle some feathers in the ruck, slow it down, just be there. Because we are by far the worst team at winning turnovers. It's actually not even funny. We are genuinely so bad at winning turnovers, apparently, according to the stats. We have 68, and the next lowest team is 87. That is crazy. That is almost 20. And most of the teams seem to be on average between 90 and 100. That is crazy. We have such a big gap between the second last person and us in the last place. So this is a huge area that we should think about and we should worry about. And to get that turnovers one stats increase, that's kind of what I think we need to do. But this is where it gets very interesting, because it's not all doom and gloom. The Sharks are ranked first in the URC for discipline, so that's great. First in the URC for lineouts, and first in the URC for scrums, okay? And specifically a noticeable advantage in lineout steals over all the other teams. So we have these tools. Look, the stats say that we have great set pieces. So we have these tools in our toolkit, but we're not deploying them well enough. We're squandering opportunities. We're not using them to get our best advantage, and we just have very poor execution, okay? Now, all of this to say, I think the Sharks should take advantage of our set piece dominance combined with that go forward that I mentioned, and use that pressure mentality, use their big bodies, and just with that combination, we will play better, I think. That is obviously my opinion. I do think that this is how the Sharks should move forward with their thought process of how to play. Now, these are just suggestions. I can make suggestions all the live long day, okay? But that doesn't mean that the Sharks or anyone has to listen to me. And what's more important as a whole, I think, is that the Sharks carve out an identity, a specific style of play that they have identified. And it doesn't need to be what I've laid out. This is just what I think would be best. But having an identity, regardless of if I agree or disagree, is better than having no identity, which is what we see right now. And so it's just the lack of identity, man. That's what the Lions have, and that's how they know how to do it. The Bulls rely on their huge forward pack, okay? The Lions rely on running it quickly, okay? The Sharks just don't know what to do. And what needs to happen to improve the Sharks' results is a shift in the team culture. This is where we talk about team culture. It's developing players, it's investing in talent, but as Sharks players first, not as future Springboks that can bring in money for the Sharks, but as Sharks players who will go on to be great and train and become Springboks. There's a very important distinction between the two of those. Focusing on the team as a cohesive unit rather than a merch factory, and to reassess what it means to put on the Sharks jersey. Put on pride. That's what it means. Putting on a Sharks jersey should represent something truly special, and this is what needs to be injected into the franchise at the moment. Putting some pride, what it means is not signing new Springboks necessarily, because would you rather have these Springbok stars finishing in 9th, not making the playoffs, or a lesser known potential star getting much further and maybe even winning the whole thing before he becomes a Springbok? Wouldn't that be cool? The Shark in him should come before the Springbok for the Sharks team. So, a shift in identity. Knowing how we want to play, from our senior team right down to our under-9s, there should be something that's just keeping us, a golden thread that keeps the Sharks franchise what it is. And this, using our strengths, it means mitigating our weaknesses and having everybody on the same page. This needs to happen because the Sharks brand, which the shareholders love so much, is hurting because they haven't been doing this. And I love this team, as you can see. I'm very passionate about this team. And I'm also very critical about this team because I just know that everyone else knows that we can and we should be doing better. We are not a struggling team because we're under-resourced and we're doing this. We're doing this to ourselves. This is the issue. We should be better. It's not, oh, I feel bad for them. It's like, get up, dude. What are you doing? You're doing, like, this is your own doing. Do better. And we should be doing better. And we can be doing better. And I would love for us to do better because I love this team so much. Now, I am confident that the Sharks are capable of winning the URC. But things definitely need to change. They don't have to do exactly what I've said. I would suggest it because that's my opinion. But I do think that some things do need to change. And I'm very hopeful because I think there is change coming. I can feel change. The signings that we have, the new youngsters, Zekekelo Siaya, Vusi Moyo, these guys are super talented youngsters. And I think particularly for Moyo's case, we are sorely lacking a fly half at the moment. And again, something that the big boys, Skalkberger and the boys, have said, for the past 10 years, we haven't had a pretty stable fly half. We have Jordan Hendricks at the moment, and he has been kind of, especially at the end of this season, has been kind of in and out, maybe with injuries, stuff behind the scenes, I don't know, but it seems to be just injury stuff, which is fair. I mean, we can't control that, but we do need someone who can be a general in this team, someone who can, and I think it's very important for us, for that person to be the fly half, especially with the way that the Sharks are set up at the moment, because we have Andre Esterhuizen occasionally, and as much as I would just love for Andre Esterhuizen to just stay in the Sharks team, obviously he's a Springbok, he's a fantastic player, he must represent our country, obviously, and I love that, but we do need someone who's a general for the Sharks. And I think that could potentially be Vusi Moyo, a very important signing, or very important youngster going forth. I mean, he's playing for the under-20s at the moment, so he still has time to develop. And if we retain him, and give him a reason to stay, actually, give him a reason to think that this club will do good things for him. Just do that. Offer him not the money. I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about development. I'm talking about team. I'm talking about himself as a person. The Sharks need to be a place not for retired Springboks, but for development for the future, and that's genuinely what I think we need to focus on. So these are my thoughts. If you disagree with me, please let me know. If you think I've said something semi-smart, also let me know. I'm keen to see what are you guys thinking. This is a pretty long video, but I appreciate if you would give a like, maybe a subscribe if you're willing. But yeah, I just think something needs to change, and I'm hoping to do many more videos similar to this one. Maybe shorter, maybe longer, probably shorter. But yeah, these are my thoughts. My name is Cuan Raw. I appreciate all of you. This has been Fair Tackle Rugby. You can also find me on Twitter or X, whatever it's called, and probably Instagram at some stage. But yeah, cheers everybody. Have a good rest of your days.